We finally made it to part 2 of our Electoral College series, where we will finally get into the arguments surrounding the future of the Electoral College. But before I go any further, I wanted to offer you all a word of encouragement, because staying informed is not easy. It's actually quite the opposite. You have to read more, dig deeper, and really seek the truth in order to find out what's going on. And I know at times it can probably seem like fruitless labor, but I can assure you that what you're doing is very, very important. Because in a country with so many freedoms, it seems like the one freedom that people so quickly neglect is their freedom to think for themselves. Thomas Jefferson said that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. And that is so true because, especially in 2020, where misinformation can spread so quickly, and you can get sucked into one-sided stories so easily, we can start to neglect and sacrifice more and more of our intellectual freedoms. So I'm going to end with a quote from Thomas Paine. "What we obtain too cheap, we esteem too lightly. It is dearness only that gives everything its value. Heaven knows how to put a proper price on its goods, and it would be strange indeed if so celestial an article as freedom were not highly rated." And that is so true. So keep up the fight. I can tell you that really preserving your intellectual integrity, making sure that you are coming to your own opinions honestly, is fighting for your freedom. And that is so important, like I said, especially this year. So with all of that in mind, let's get into talking about the Electoral College. I'm Ben Leach, and this is The Ben Leach Show. As with all of our videos, I would like to start off by saying thank you to today's video sponsor, which in this case is my own flesh and blood brother, Jake Leach. So congratulations for being the sponsor. Honestly, guys, family can be your harshest critic sometimes, so if you can get them to like what you're doing, you must be doing something good. No, in all honesty, Jake and the rest of my family have been very big supporters of this channel, and so I really appreciate your encouragement. Yes, so thank you. Now that we got that out of the way, let's dig into the arguments. So I think the way to really dissect these arguments in the most concise way possible will be to start with the reasons for getting rid of the Electoral College, and then get into why we should keep the Electoral College. I think that I'll really be dissecting them like pro and con style. So I will offer you a reason why people say we should, and then offer you a reason why we shouldn't. So kind of a back and forth kind of thing there. But ultimately, it is up to you to decide which side of the argument you find more compelling. So let's get into it. So the first argument that we will be talking about is centered around the fact that the Electoral College should be abolished because it is undemocratic. It doesn't reflect the will of the people. So this argument is really centered around the fact that under the current system that we have, it is possible for a candidate to lose the popular vote but still win the election. So this happened most recently in 2016, where Donald Trump won a majority of the votes in the Electoral College, but lost by a couple million votes in the popular vote. This happened also in 2000 by a lot slimmer of margins. But this has happened multiple times throughout our country's history. So this system, it would seem, has the ability to be skewed against what the majority of Americans want. But the common counter-argument for this point is that the system is that way on purpose. It's to protect against what the founders thought was the tyranny of the majority. It was any state's ability to have a higher population and be able to suppress states with a lower population. For example, let's say we have State A and State B. State A has 300 people. They do a lot of industry, they do a lot of steel work. State B has only 150 people. They do a lot of rural agriculture, such as farming corn or wheat. If you are running to be the leader of these two states, you're probably going to focus on state A because they have a higher population. So I'm going to build my campaign strategy around focusing on the steel industry and helping them and giving them tax breaks and everything like that. That way I will get the majority of votes from that state. And it really doesn't serve state B to be a part of this nation because they have a lower population, therefore they wouldn't have a say at all. That was one of the fears that the founders had, which is why they created a system that was deliberately undemocratic. That way, people could still have a say, but it also didn't neglect the states that were a part of the Union, especially smaller states with smaller economies, to also have a say in who was going to lead their country. The second argument surrounding why we should get rid of the Electoral College is because it's popular. Since its inception, there has been 700 different proposals to get rid of the Electoral College. That's a ton. And there's always been broad support since around the year 2000 when public polling has become a lot more popular and prevalent. There's been popular support to get rid of it completely. Around 51 to 55% of respondents say that they'd basically be in favor of getting rid of the Electoral College. And if, after all, we are supposed to be a country that is governed by the consent of the people, wouldn't it make sense then to listen to what the people want and change and get rid of the Electoral College? Well, the common counter-argument for this point is that over the 700 different proposals of getting rid of the Electoral College, exactly 0 of them have passed, because there's never been that much of a majority enough to get rid of the Electoral College. And in reality, this argument itself proves the point of the founders, that we have systems like the Electoral College and checks and balances within our government to make sure that a majority can't dictate what happens in our country. That there are checks, like for example in the executive, judicial, and legislative branch in our national government, to make sure that no one branch becomes more powerful than the other ones. There's checks put in place. Same thing with the Electoral College is that it puts in check the majority of the country, that the majority of the population doesn't always dictate the majority of the states, because states' rights are important as well. So the fact that all of these proposals have failed reflects that the majority of states don't want that, even if the majority of people do. The third argument surrounding why we should get rid of the Electoral College is this. We directly elect basically all other positions that can be run for. So we directly elect our senators, both on the state and national level, our House members on the state and national level, and the governor on our state level. So why don't we directly elect the president? I mean, it's not like the election system that we have now has always been in place. It's changed with the times. For example, the vice president wasn't always chosen by the president. It was whoever lost the election. The runner-up became the vice president. Then they changed it to the runner-up in the party gets to be the vice president. Then they changed it to where the president can choose who his vice president's going to be. Likewise, we haven't always been able to directly elect our senators. In fact, there was a time where we couldn't. It was selected within Congress. They would appoint senators. And that really didn't seem fair to people, so they changed it. Now we can directly elect our senators. So wouldn't it make sense to change with the times then and allow us, now here we are in 2020, to elect our own leader? Well, you can decide that for yourself. The counter-argument for that point, however, is this. It's not like we can directly elect everyone in government, because there is a whole branch of our government that we don't directly elect at all. That's the judicial branch in the Supreme Court. Likewise, the president is uniquely situated as a position, because arguably it is the most important position that one can run for. The president has much more power than any one governor, one senator, or one House member. It's very important that whoever leads the country is not only selected by the will of the people, but also by the will of the states that are choosing to submit to a national government. And so if we just listen to the people and neglect what the states want, then we really aren't the United States of America, we're just the United Peoples of America. That's not how our government's set up. That's never been how it's set up. And that is really one of the main things that the founders didn't want to happen, was that just the people alone get to decide. They wanted states with different economies, with different interests, with different industries to be able to have equal say in not only our legislative side, but also the executive side as well, choosing who's going to run the country. So because the president is uniquely situated, we should have a system that is uniquely situated to balance those things, which we already have, the Electoral College. So that's why we should keep it and not get rid of it. The fourth argument surrounding why we should get rid of the national popular vote centers around the idea that our election can come down to a handful of states, swing states. And if you're trying to protect minority rights, you're not really including every state in that. It's just only a handful, meaning that the majority of states don't even get a say at all. Isn't it important for other states to be able to choose who's president? Well, the common counter-argument for that is that states do choose who the president is. But the reason that people focus on swing states more than, let's say, deep blue or deep red states is because swing states can swing in either direction. They get the term swing state from the fact that in the past 4 election cycles, they've voted for Republicans twice and Democrats twice. Meaning that if they focus a lot of their effort into those states, they might be able to get their votes and electorates in order to win the election in addition to the states that are already considered safe. The trouble is, though, that states that are swing states now might not always be that way. And safe states might not always be safe states. That's why under the Electoral College system, you really need the support of different areas of the country in order to secure a win. So a safe state now might not always stay that way if a candidate or a party constantly neglects that area of the country or that state specifically. Then they might reach out to the other political party if they start to get more support from them, and that state might flip. So that's why people focus more on swing states, because they are swayable. But that doesn't mean that they totally neglect the other states, because it's also equally important for them to get all support from the country, different regions, in order to win. The fifth and final argument that I will talk about for a reason to get rid of the Electoral College is because it would incentivize people to get involved in our election cycle. So let's say that you are a die-hard liberal living in Texas. Odds are in November you cast a ballot, it won't really matter much because Texas is a deep red state. Likewise, if you are a die-hard Republican living in the state of California, it probably won't matter what your vote is because odds are the Democrat Party, who has won California consistently, will win California again. That might lead to a lot of people who are discouraged currently from voting at all. But if we get rid of the Electoral College system completely and just let people decide, it would make people from all parts of the country, from all political parties, to be able to vote and have their voice be heard. Therefore, we would have a lot more people participating in government. Isn't that a good thing? The answer is yes, absolutely. Getting involved in government and getting involved in politics is a good thing. However, this argument once again fails to look at the importance of state rights and the importance of federalism, a separation of powers between national and state governments. We have state governments for a reason, because we are a United States of America, not just the United Peoples of America. So once again, this would neglect states with smaller populations. It would neglect people and demographics that are smaller in lieu of whatever's the most popular choice. And again, the founders wanted to make sure that all voices could be heard, not just the loudest ones. They wanted to make sure that everyone, regardless of what size state you live in, had equal say in our government, which is why we have the Senate. Which is why we have a state as large as California having the same equal representation as Alaska. California is significantly larger than Alaska, but Alaska nonetheless still has 2 Senate seats, and California has 2 as well. Now, under the Electoral College system, it does advantage states with larger populations with more electors, but it also makes sure that small states with small economies and smaller populations of people also have equal say. And although it would be good to have more people from parties that are not the popular party in that state vote, it would sacrifice a lot more than you would gain. You would sacrifice states' rights, you would sacrifice smaller economies in smaller states being able to have a say at all in our federal government if you opt to have just a national popular vote system. So those are the arguments that I've put in place. I tried to select the 5 most popular reasons to get rid of the Electoral College. Obviously, there are a lot more, and I would really encourage you to do research if you're still undecided on whether you want an Electoral College or whether you want some other form. Because I was mainly just talking about getting rid of it and keeping it. But there are a lot of arguments surrounding reforming it, changing it just a little bit to reflect maybe a little bit more popular vote or to reflect maybe a little bit more of the other side as well. So again, I would encourage you to do research, but really, it's up to you to decide what you want. I mean, I can sit here and tell you what I think, but that won't really help you decide what you think. So I would really encourage you to dig into these arguments, think about them, talk about them with your friends and family in order for you to be able to come up with your own opinion. Because this is something that is very central, especially at this upcoming election and further elections. This is an argument that's very prevalent in news, and this is a talking point that's very common right now, that if we see a Democrat-led president and the Senate, then in the House, we might have this sort of proposal put in place. And so if that were to happen, you wouldn't be caught off guard because you are prepared now with your opinion and you can vote accordingly. You can also talk about this now in a responsible manner, knowing what the arguments are and also having knowledge about what the Electoral College is itself. You're not really in the dark about any one of those things. So you can feel confident now about talking about this issue, which is really important, and if I were to venture a guess, I would say will continue to be important, not just this year, but in many years to come, because it's been contested ever since it's been created, so I don't expect that to change anytime soon. But like I said, it's important that you have all this information, and now that you do, you can form your own opinion about it. So I really hope that you got something out of this video. If you did, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel. I will be posting videos bi-weekly, so be on the lookout for that. You can also follow me on Instagram at The Ben Leach Show and Parler at The Ben Leach Show as well. I would highly encourage you to do that. Also, share this with people. If you are getting something out of it, I would really recommend that you share this with other people. That way they can be informed too, because it's not just enough to know the information yourself if you're not sharing it with anyone else. And that's why I started this channel in the first place, so that the most amount of people could get really reliable information. So please consider doing that as well. My next video, I will be talking about our form of government and how that came to be. I've kind of lent some details in this video, but I will be further expanding upon that in my next video, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much again for letting me be a part of your day or morning or evening, but that's all I have for you for now. I'm Ben Leach. Have a great day.